in transit. It's Friday, October 13th. It's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it is.
This is going to be, and it's the sixth line of this fucking transit.
And that.
8:35 a.m. on a Friday.
Friday.
We got 57.
13th.
What's that?
Talk about it later.
Bro,
what are we going to do today?
We're doing it.
I know.
Okay, line 6, 57. Utilization. The acceptance that clarity is a double-edged sword. There are situations where understanding cannot lead to rectification. Here, Uranus's innovative quality can generally make the best out of an otherwise difficult but rarely permanent situation. Where there is no answer, only the possibilities of the intuition can make the best out of a difficult situation. That, when clarity points to a problem one is unable, because of circumstances, to solve, a tendency to anger and frustration that provokes inevitably futile action. The possibility that when the intuition cannot solve a problem, a tendency to frustration and anger. So this is about there being no answer and the response to there being no answer.
Yeah.
Like the intuition to find the path that's not frustration and anger, but to make the best out of the difficult situation.
Right.
Which...
You're not looking to your intuition to always have the answer for you as well.
Right, yeah, like...
This line for today. Well,
that's it.
It's going to be some... Nope, we did good. All right.
That's ooh, look how it gets darker
as
the floor goes. So that's a good point. It's like, you know, like a lot of the times people like look to their intuition for answers, when really intuition is just like guidance. It's here to keep you safe, really. You know, being psychic and stuff like that. I think people have hijacked that term, intuition, meaning to be able to like read people's minds or intuit answers, when really it's kind of like this, just this clarity and like a little bit of acceptance mixed in with some guidance. But ultimately the point of our intuition, right, I think it really is just to just keep us alive. And then, yeah, it's also like 57 is splenic, and intuition does come from the spleen, right? And so the spleen, right, again, survival, immune system. So one really interesting thing about Friday the 13th, not sure if everyone here knows, do you know the history of Friday the 13th?
I've been told it. It's been a long, long time.
With the...
Enlighten me, brother.
With the Templars and all that?
The Knights Templars?
Yeah. So the original Friday the 13th, that story comes from back in the day when the Templars were like really rich and successful. Templar Knights, I think it was like, I want to say like...
Sounds like 1600s.
Yeah, maybe 16. I forget exactly what it is, but basically what happened was the Templar Knights was this group of holy knights that gained so much power that the Pope and the crown became threatened by them. And so Friday the 13th is the night that they issued, it was like an overnight ethnic cleansing of Templar Knights. It was basically, if you were a Templar Knight, it was punishable by death, according to like a new law that they made overnight. And then on Friday the 13th, there was a coordinated attack and they killed all the Templars. Some of them escaped. Some say they came to America. But that's why Friday the 13th has this like unlucky theme to it, which is be on the lookout today for really scary stuff in the world. There's an energy to this day. I wonder if it was line 6, 58, 57. I'm like, I don't actually know, because it's in terms of like, you know, again, the Gregorian calendar, they don't always sync up in that way. But
Oh, Vale, 13 switches, number 13 moon smell. Says crossed 23 years ago today.
Aw.
Prayers up for your little sis.
Lessons up for little sis. So the utilization of intuition sometimes is to acknowledge that there is no answer, only the possibilities that your intuition can make the best out of a shitty situation. Right? And that frustration and anger will emerge out of failing to or trying to force the intuition to summon forth an answer, which this is actually kind of relevant, and I've done this in my life a lot, where I've like been trying to like read my cards and get some guidance on something, and I'm not able to get the guidance that I want, so I keep asking the cards over and over again. And or it's like you ask for advice and you get advice, but it's not the advice you want, so you ask for advice from a different person. It's the same advice, and then you ask for advice from a different person. Again, that would be not intuition, right? It's like the opposite. And the intuition ought to tell you, like, hey, this is the third person you've asked for advice, or this is the third time you've pulled cards and you've been getting the same answer, not one that you want. But sometimes you don't get what you want. A lot more times you get what you actually need. So
9 at the top means penetration under the bed. He loses his property and his axe. Perseverance brings misfortune. I don't know who that is. A man's understanding is sufficiently penetrating. He follows his injurious influences into the most secret corners, but he no longer has the strength to combat them decisively. In this case, any attempt to penetrate into the personal domain of darkness would only bring harm. Interesting. I'm trying to figure out what this penetration under the bed, what is that alluding to? Penetration under the bed. This is an interesting one. One of those ones I'm like... But relating to this, the Gate 57 in the book that you were reading out of, the Brave I Ching. Yeah, it's not using the decisive or the intuition to combat like the mental thaws. In this case, any attempt to penetrate into the personal domain of darkness would only bring harm. Not getting a lot from this one here. Brain big fart.
Brain big fart, bro. Well, so I know this also as the gate of fear around extinction. And so it's kind of like, right, like the intuition has the capacity in a way to help us survive in the moment. And there's a fear of what's going to happen in the future, but it doesn't necessarily have the ability to look into the future. And again, that's another, I think, maybe misconception people have about intuition, is that you're able to look into the future, or and not to say that the intuition can't do that, just a like defining the words a little bit more clearly so that we can use proper words of like projecting into the future rather than intuition, which is a sense of what's going on now. And it's almost like the fear of like, again, clarity is being a double-edged sword. There are situations where understanding cannot lead to rectification. So there's a sense that this cannot be understood, similar to like correction. This cannot be corrected. That the intuition then allows you to, kind of like disengage from the thing. Like kind of similar to me in my situation with all the technology, and it was just like just disengage from it. And I didn't want to, because I'm like, that's not going to help me. Like I need to know more so I can be better prepared for the future. But sometimes it's like,
yeah, do I need to take in all this information?
Exactly. Or like, what is my intention with taking in all this information?
Yes.
And that's really what it is. That sixth line, impossible, sees the future possibility so clear. Right. But that stems out of like the moment, right? And so, right, if I'm going to anticipate this future, right, and this is also another thing that in martial arts is really important. There's a harmony to be had with anticipating the future and remaining present, because if I'm like in a fight, for instance, and there's certain cues that I pick up and I anticipate that my opponent is going to throw like a right hook, and I go to block the right hook because I've anticipated it, but then he throws the front, and I get hit because I was anticipating something else. Again, it's like it's more important for the intuition to be seated in the present than into projecting into the future. And I would say that as well for role models. Like I see a lot of role models get caught up, especially ones that are still in their first phase of life or the roof phase of life. where they're like, I really want to go out and share and like do it, make it all happen, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But they're not necessarily in the seat of their presence. And that's something that is, how you say, pushing that out, I would say, even more and more, because it's like, got to be present, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I looked up a word, and now this makes more sense.
Tell me.
So he follows up injurious influences into the most secret corners. So this is like following something that is leading you to destruction or leading you to being harmed into the most secret corners, which is like being backed up into a corner of like there's no way of getting out of this. The same thing like you were just talking about with fighting. It's like expecting one thing to happen and then the other thing happens. You get hit in the face and like keep backing up into a corner. And he no longer has the strength to combat them decisively. So it's like throwing decisiveness out the window and then hopefully leaning on to intuition, since we're in the game of intuition, to be able to follow towards the best outcome of a difficult situation.
Yeah. It's like with, I might have told this story before, but in fencing school, not that I was ever in fencing school, but in fencing school, it's like a boarding house, so everyone lives together. One of the hazing things that they do to the new fencers that are coming in is they'll just attack them out of nowhere, like when they're cooking or when they're doing their laundry or when they're just like reading or something. They'll come with a sword and start attacking them. And so if I'm reading and someone starts attacking me, I gotta use the book to defend myself, right? And one of the things that happens, right, is there's this fear in the air of everyone is like on edge. Anytime someone comes in the door, they're like looking to make sure they're not getting attacked. But after a couple weeks, the fear starts to die down, and there's a calmingness, because not everyone that comes in the room is going to attack you, right? But then when you do get attacked, there's a because there's a calmness, right, and not this everyone's going to attack me. When someone does come in with the intention to attack them, it's a different energy entering into the room. And then that person is able to react to that energy as opposed to projecting that energy on everyone. They're able to specifically react to that energy because there is that again, and it's one of those things where, again, it's like it takes exposure to the cold or the pain or the discomfort in order to acclimate yourself so that it's not so shocking or jarring to the system, so that then your intuition can actually play, right? And that's the whole part about like practicing intuition and heeding intuition, right? And inner authority in general is like the more you listen to the inner authority, the more clear it becomes when it's your inner authority talking, or when it's some samples that you've picked up from other people, or some kind of external influence, or the mind pretending to be the inner authority, which happens. All right. What an experience to learn energy in a room, right? It's funny too, because in the field that me and Luke are in, like men's work, there's something like that as well, where anytime you're talking to any man, especially at some of these events, you never know when a dude is going to like drop into a process, right, or get like super emotional and just like go into it. Like you never really know, like, and so. One of the things in the beginning I remember was it was like there was kind of this walking on eggshells and me not wanting to like trigger any men, because then it was a lot of, could potentially be a lot of work to like hold space for them. And now I'm not really worried about that anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not walking on eggshells anymore, or I'm not assuming that everyone is going to have that. And it's made me much more present in a lot of these dudes that I may have projected like need a good cry or like need some kind of release. They don't actually need that at all. So it's a again, practicing with this is what leads to the maturing of the skill. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. It's like, the spleen, it's like we're using fear to access intuition. We're using the fear of, are you food or am I food? That sense, that awareness. Am I healthy? Am I not healthy? Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? We're using that to access a deeper level of awareness. And so that means that we have to make an ally out of fear, right? And not having fear is actually a dangerous thing, because then you're not able to tell where the danger actually is, and the fear is like the heat seeking or the echolocation that lets us do that. So again, learning with the fear of what could happen or the possible extinction events in the future. And that's the sixth line. So that's the role model line of it. This is the last, for another 6 months or so, we won't be back in this gate. And then in the earth, we have 51.6, which is separation. In times of crisis, when all those around are confused and in disorder, the ability not to succumb to the panic, but to have the will and the vitality to survive it alone. The power of the ego to meet challenges alone. Curiosity, the same gift. Curiously, the same gift, but won by its attitude that invites disapproval in the extreme, may even prevent a successful separation. The egoism to meet the challenge alone that may provoke and empower the challenges. Okay, so this is like you're either drawing energy from this like calm willingness to meet it alone, or this like hype. It's like the difference between like getting ready to do a cold plunge and going like, oh yeah, whoa, let's do it. They're getting all crazy and they're hyping themselves up, and then getting in the cold plunge, which actually makes it harder because if you just calm yourself first and then you get into the water, it's actually a lot easier. I know for me. Of course, I'm third lining it and trying both of them.
Exactly.
But it's the ability to separate one's self from the shock, separate one's self from the crowd, and ultimately follow one's own circuitry as a point of guidance within that, or to help guide the adaptation.
Six of the top means shock brings ruin and terrified gazing around. Going ahead brings misfortune. If it has not yet touched one's own body, but has reached one's neighbor first, there is no blame. One's comrades have something to talk about. When inner shock is at its height, it robs a man of reflection and clarity of vision. In such a state of shock, it is of course impossible to act with presence of mind. Then the right thing is to keep still until composure and clarity are restored. But this a man can only do when he himself is not yet infected by the agitation, although its disastrous effects are already visible in those around him. If he withdraws from the affair in time, he remains free of mistakes and injury, but his comrades, who no longer heed any warning, will in their excitement certainly be displeased with him. However, he must not take this into account. This, is to me relating to what's going on right now. Is like getting really caught up in what's happening with Hamas and Palestine and with Israel, and like getting caught up in like the stories and everything that's happening online,
right,
and being stuck in that. But if you can like see that this is like what you've done, you took yourself away from it and you're like, oh, let me slow down and take care of my yard and my things and clean up my space.
Literally, just let me pick up the trash in my yard.
Yeah, exactly. And then today, I'm sure you feel much better. Even when I came home from work yesterday, you're like, oh, fuck it. This is like way better than being in the story and trying to understand what's going on, because it hasn't yet reached us. Like, we're not having to deal with that yet. And it could in the future, but is it going to? We don't know. Not until it actually happens. So it's best to be in the present moment and stay where we're at now, rather than being like, let me try and figure this out. Okay, like using the intuition to try and figure out when are we going to be shocked? When is it going to happen to me?
Oh, that's an interesting visual you just put there of like the intuition to try and like anticipate the shock. Huh. Wow, that's a really interesting concept. Because it's like the magic of the intuition is that you don't have to use it to anticipate the shock.
It's true.
And when you let go of that, then the intuition will anticipate the shock, but only when it's coming. Right?
Yeah.
And then, but if you're always in the anticipation point, then you're always in that state of the shock is about to come, the shock is about to come. Then you're never able to know when the shock is actually about to come, because you're always in that like a tonic muscle, like just a hardened, always hardened, doesn't know how to relax muscle.
Yeah, it's like when you see someone in a fight and they constantly turn their head away when they think a punch is coming. But it's like, did you actually even see the punch coming?
Or they close their eyes.
Or they close their eyes, yeah, and it's like...
Or they just always have their guard up.
Yeah.
And they're blocking their own view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you know when it's actually going to come in? Like, can you start timing it and, like, see it come and be able to move just before it's coming through?
Yeah. Nothing to figure out, just be, and we will know. That terrified gaze.
Yeah. Shock brings ruin and terrified gazing. Yeah.
Terrified gaze. Oh, yeah. That's what she wrote.
Oh.
Terrified gazing. Wow. So I feel that big time in the world, like a lot of people are locked into this terrified gaze. And it's on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the phone. And we're going to probably be given something even more today in terms of a terrified gaze to be terrified about. Not to say don't be terrified by it, but, there's take into account what your relationship with your own clarity and your own shock is. And if it's not at the standard that you would like, do something to practice it and to train it, which actually probably one of the best things to train shock is actually cold water, like cold shock, because that's like one of the biggest shocks is the temperature, right? And so if you find that like, your this transit has you in that terrified gaze, probably do some cold showers. Same thing with the clarity is like, if you find yourself anticipating too much, like trying to keep the intuition on all the time rather than just being and trusting that the intuition is like always there. Cold showers ground you into the moment like no other. I might have to take one right now. It's getting toasty in here.
Yeah, it's hot.
Well, guys, that'll do it for the T in transit.
Yes.
Next
Tomorrow,
week, or tomorrow,
we've got duration and increase. Gate 32, gate 42.
Indeed.
What this transit brings.
Yes, thank you guys for another lovely session. Love you guys. Some quasi announcements. Me and Ryan have decided on a date for our Live Your Design. It's going to be on the 22nd of January, so you have some time. I'm going to try and find the link for it. And we're building out I'm building out the the page where you can register. Life Force is Ryan. Sorry. Actually, here I could just do this. So I posted my links, which did not show up as a link. Great. Okay, wait. So if you click that link, there's a button down there that says Live Your Design course. It's in like the second column. And January 22nd is going to be the when the actual new year begins, right? So a lot of people think the new year begins on January 1st. But if you look at human design in the Rave Mandala, the new year begins when we enter Gate 41, which is the initiating codon. So everyone's DNA starts with Gate 40, the 41st codon. That's what starts, and then everything compiles from after that based off of placements and stuff, which is wild fractalizing. But yeah, so if you want to get registered for that, that's just so we know where to send the emails and who wants to get involved. And then I think, that's about it. So if you're interested in doing a Live Your Design with myself and Life Force, and Prana will probably be there. Luke will be there as well. It'll be a special one because it'll be our first. And we're going to do cool stuff. Like for that group, we're going to create like a private channel in here for you guys to have just with like that little family. And we'll definitely run it again. And we also will definitely be giving some discounts and maybe even giving a spot away or something like that. I just thought about that. Maybe I'll tell Ryan about it. And big love to you guys. So catch you next time. Catch you tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Aloha.
Bye.